Welcome to Activate Your Introvert, the weekly radio show to help you uncover and unlock the entrepreneurial skills in your business.
In this week's show, Happy World Introvert Day. Do introverts need more sleep? And an interview with Sophie Morris. Sophie frees quiet professionals from overwhelm so they can use their voice to be heard without having to shout. Just before speaking to Sophie, Happy World Introvert Day. Did I hear you say, what is World Introvert Day? And why on earth is there such a thing? It's on January the 2nd, and I think it's a great chance to learn something about introverts.
I've even gone so far as to spend time with global introvert experts in preparation for this day. And we've all got a number of videos to appear on LinkedIn and Twitter across Saturday. So watch out for those with the hashtag World Introvert Day.
So why bother? Let's be honest, we know that there's plenty of misunderstandings about introversion and introvert myths. Something to help people focus on the reality can't be a bad thing. If introverts make up a third of the population, or maybe more, it's certainly not a little minority exercise. An understanding, well, it can help you to improve how you react with your staff, making your business better and making you a better leader. It could help focus you on one of your introvert superpowers. Either way, here's my recommendation. Pick one thing. Use it to develop the entrepreneurial skills in your business for 2021 to start developing more of an introvert focus. First thing you could choose to do would be to think about extrovert bias and start to notice the ways in which bias exists in the business world around us. Whether that's our recruitment techniques tend to go, oh, they spoke louder and they speak more readily, therefore they must be better. Salespeople have to be extroverted. All those kind of biases that we don't really even consider because they're biases. Perhaps we could think about changing how you manage meetings to include introverts and make better meetings. Let's be honest, there's nothing to lose. Most people I've ever spoken to saying all meetings are rubbish. You can't fail to improve your own ones by engaging the introverts more. Consider confidence and how internal and external confidence are both signs of confidence, but one shows much more readily than the other. Just because somebody doesn't readily jump up and down about something doesn't mean they don't have confidence. It might mean they have internal confidence. And finally, of course, my old favourite, give the gift of time. Happy World Introvert Day. Do let me know what tip you'd like to help you activate the entrepreneurial skills in your business, or what introvert myth you'd like exposed. Drop me an email, give me a call, or add it as a comment to your review on the iTunes store. I would love to hear from you. But now, it's time to chat to Sophie. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, John. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on your podcast.
Now, you specialise in overwhelm and stress.
I do.
But before we dive into those subjects, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And more importantly, what does that mean to you?
I am an introvert. I think I am quite a sociable introvert, which again goes against a lot of the myths that there are about introverts or being shy or not liking people. I'm not like that at all, but I think my introversion is a lot to do with how I get my energy. And I know that I need time on my own to recharge, time on my own to process. And actually, it's been a real learning curve sort of into adulthood of understanding what introversion really is. And looking back on sort of some of my experiences in my youth and going, okay, that's why maybe I needed to go to bed for 3 days after I'd been on holiday with my friends. And actually, because I was just, I was out peopled. So yes, I'm an introvert and I work with it very much rather than against it.
So when you say you work with it, what does that mean?
I think it's about understanding how best to manage my energy. So I know that I have a battery full of energy, and there are certain things that will recharge that battery and certain things that will deplete me. And so I know if I'm giving a presentation or if I've got a busy day with lots of clients, that I need to factor in time in between the clients or after my presentation before I move on to the next thing to actually recharge, to be able to function at sort of my best level.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I mean, I find similar again, probably similar kind of triggers. If I'm spending time with a lot of people, I know that afterwards I'm going to feel a bit. And yeah, when I've spent a lot of time on my own, I suddenly find, oh yeah, the battery's fully charged. Let's go for it. I guess like you, it's about then monitoring or measuring out rather than letting it all go at once.
And I think that's certainly what I do much better now, whereas I think when I was a child or a teenager, I didn't really understand that. At sort of my early 20s, I worked in events, which was, 20-hour days, some days, staying away in hotels. And thinking about it now, it's not an obvious introvert place to work, but actually I love the excitement of it. But I think what I didn't do very well then was manage my energy, and I kind of kept going when actually I probably did need to pause a bit. So yeah.
So overwhelm and stress, what is it that what creates these?
I suppose, we all know what stress is, don't we? And actually there isn't a medical definition for it, but we all know what it feels like. We probably start tensing our muscles, we may start breathing more shallowly, we may start behaving differently, that we become more irritable, or we find it harder to think clearly or make good decisions. So maybe our sleep is disturbed. So there are lots of things that stress can affect. And what I try and do, and my understanding of it, is that actually we need to proactively manage stress and proactively manage overwhelm and keep an eye on ourselves, because I think a lot of people keep going and keep going and keep going until they get to a point where actually they can't anymore. I'm a real advocate for actually looking after stress and seeing it as something as important as doing exercise or eating well or sleeping well, and actually making sure that you have some practices in place to help you manage that, so hopefully you don't get to that point of overwhelm.
That's a really nice way of looking at it. What you seem to imply is that unless we manage it, we're all going to get it, therefore deal with it in the same way as we do with everything else, like nutrition and drinking and exercise.
No, I was just going to say, I think also resilience is tied up with that, and a lot of people, their sort of perception of resilience is about bouncing back, so you're in a tough situation and your reaction is just to keep going, and you get knocked down and you come straight back up again. Whereas actually for me, resilience isn't that at all, because as I've sort of just explained, you can only keep doing that so many times. So what I like to think about is that we almost have a resilience reservoir that has a certain level of kind of inner resources that will help us when things are difficult. But actually we need to keep that topped up by eating well, sleeping well, doing things that we enjoy as well. I think it's very easy when we're busy and we feel that we have a lot of pressure, that the things that we enjoy and the things that kind of nourish us in a different way can get pushed to the bottom of the list or even off the list altogether.
You mentioned an inner reservoir just now. Every time I hear things like inner this and external this, I always come back to, is that different for introverts? Do introverts have different ways or needs when it comes to that inner reservoir?
I'm not sure if they have different needs, and that I think we all need to look after it. But I think introverts maybe do react to stress in a different way to extroverts, in that I think they're likely to become, or certainly in my experience, become sort of more internalized. And I think for the introverts themselves, and also for the people who are around them, it's important to be aware of that. And I think, one of the things that introverts are often accused of is being antisocial or being very quiet or not talking. And actually, it's not necessarily that we don't have things to say, but I think when we're stressed, that can become more exacerbated, and actually we may become even quieter.
Yeah, I guess that I can see that one. So people, when stressed, revert to kind of a base type, as it were. What should we do about it? If you were to give a tip for an introvert for managing stress, what would that be?
I would say about managing your energy. What I also recommend is to almost keep a record every day of your stress level. So check in, say, 0 to 10 every morning, and kind of go, okay, today is this sort of day. Because I think to be aware of your stress levels, if they're more or less stable, or if they are increasing ever more, whether it's over days or over weeks, it can give a really good insight and to help you know that actually maybe you do need some external support. Because I think also introverts don't really like asking for help. They're quite, we like solving problems, and so we quite like to be able to fix things on our own. And actually, by keeping a track of your stress levels and your energy within that, that can help give you a real indication of how you're doing.
There's two thoughts went straight through my head as you were talking about that, but don't like asking other people for help. So clearly one of the answers, once you've tracked it, is going to be find what helps you, if that's somebody else. But is there a difference between positive and negative stress? As soon as you talked about tracking it, I suddenly realised for the last, I don't know, 3-4 years, every day I put a score down where 3 is kind of completely neutral and 5 is stressed out my head.
Yeah.
But I also put myself on a score of do I feel positive or negative? Yeah. And sometimes I can feel really positive and stressed, but actually it seems like a good stress, if that makes any sense.
And that's the thing, and there is good stress. There is good stress. Sometimes stress can really help motivate us. It can really help us finish a project that we want to do or start something that we wanted to do. So actually stress in itself doesn't have to be bad. The important bit is that when you've had your moment of stress, you then relax and you go back to sort of a calmer level. And I think the problem is chronic stress is when those levels never lower.
Return. Yeah.
So stress in itself doesn't have to be a negative at all. It's just when it.
And if I was to ask you for one other quick tip for perhaps a leader or a manager who's managing a team, maybe there's introverts in the team, is there anything different they could do to help the introverts when it comes to stress and overwhelm?
I think as a manager, you treat all your team as individuals. So I guess it's about what the right thing is for them. And if there is someone who's quieter in your team who seems even quieter than normal, that could be an indication that they are feeling stressed. So I would say from a manager's perspective, it's about listening. It's about making your team a place that people can be open. And that's for the introverts and the extroverts, really. But to feel that it is a place that they can discuss how they're feeling without sort of fear of retribution, which I know sounds awful, but there's still so much stigma around mental health, even though it's much, much better, but people still aren't always comfortable to talk about it.
I love that one. So whether it's not about, as a manager, listening for introvert or extrovert stress, obviously be aware of your whole team. If somebody's behavior changes, if they suddenly become quieter, you might want to ask yourself why and just listen a bit more. Yeah. Sophie, that's been really interesting. Thank you so much. We have completely run out of time, in fact, overrun. When the listeners want to get back in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So you can have a look at my website, which is Quietosophy, or you can find me on LinkedIn, which is Sophie Morris Coaching.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It's been brilliant.
Great to talk to you, John. Thank you.
And now it's time for Introvert Myth of the Week. Those crazy stories that I hear and you hear, but some people actually believe.
Introverts need more sleep. It's weird. I'd not heard that one before, and so it's certainly not what I would consider the most common myth, but I thought I'm going to chat to a couple of sleep experts. And in fact, I'm going to have a sleep expert appearing on the show in a few weeks as a result. But, just in case you wondered, introverts do not need more sleep. Where might this myth come from? I think it's a misunderstanding, as all of them. There's a difference between sleep and rest. Listeners to this show will know that introverts are more sensitive to dopamine, and so they're going to be more sensitized, oversensitized much more quickly in social situations and feel tired more quickly. That might mean that they need more rest, but that's not the same as saying they need more sleep. If you're an introvert finding yourself shattered, give yourself the gift of time. Get some more quiet time. rather than always trying to sleep for longer. Because no, introverts don't need more sleep. That's it for 2020. I'll speak to you next year. Have a fantastic new year.
Thank you for listening to Activate Your Introvert, and I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I'd love to see your reviews on the iTunes store. Thank you once again, and catch up with you next week.